Perfect. So I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we start. This is our third Rising Professionals Interest Group meeting of the year. This meeting is being recorded, so if you do not want to be recorded, go ahead and just turn your camera off or just type into the chat. You don't have to speak. This is your session, so we want questions, we want comments. Please ask. You can either raise your hand or what we're going to do is we have 3 panelists today that I will review shortly, and we can save questions to the end. So if you want to type them into the chat, that's probably easiest. And then at the end, I'll kind of ask for questions. You can go to the next slide. Perfect. So we have 3 panelists today, Andrea, Rachel, and Barbara. We can start with Andrew, unless someone prefers to go first. Barbara, I don't know if you want to go first, or Andrea, if you want to go first. All right.
I'm open.
All right, perfect. We'll just go in order then. So the point of this event today is to really highlight different areas of industry that are opportunities for you to eventually go in, maybe you have interest in, or just learn more about what you can do. Actually, Maria, if you can go to the back one, I'll end on this slide. Sorry, thank you. So we'll start with Andrea, who works for W.L. Gore with me. She is the senior executive with over 25 years of leadership experience in apparel, consumer packaging goods, luxury, and material science industries. She has led and championed growth and innovation initiatives in a diverse set of industries, domestic and global. Quite a few different companies to name here, which she will get into. And her path spanning sales, product development, marketing, and people management is a unique one, offering a perspective that speaks to the individuals of diverse backgrounds. She currently leads strategy and category development for Goreware North America, which is one of the brands owned by W.L. Gore. So what we're going to do is have Andrea present a few of her slides that she's put together to show you what a day in the life looks like for her. We'll work our way down through each of our panelists. I'll introduce them. And then at the end, we'll go through some questions. And if no one has any questions, then I have some prepared that we can kind of go through and just chat. This is very informal, just a fun look at different areas within industry. So have fun with it and ask questions.
Great. Okay, so is that my cue? Excellent. Let me share my screen because I did prepare some slides just to kind of guide the conversation. And let me put that on presentation mode and then we'll be all set.
Perfect.
Oh, I think I need to change my display settings. There we go. Good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invite, Jessica. This was just sounded like such a fun topic to talk about and learn from other people as well. So starting at the beginning, Jessica already said my name. My name is Andrea Nondorf. Jessica and I work together at W.L. Gore and Associates, and I will take you through a couple examples of a day in the life of what I kind of was doing yesterday and today in just a few moments. But I thought before I get there, I wanted to start by just taking you through my career path quickly, but career path just so you could see how I got to what I'm focused on today at W.L. Gore and Associates. And as I was preparing the slides and kind of writing it down, I was like, yeah, my career has looked a lot more like the arrow on the right than it does the left. And you'll see that as we go through, because believe it or not, I did not start in the textile industry. I started in a very different place, but built capabilities that were transferable to the textile industry that I joined maybe about 10 years ago. So way back when, I don't want to age myself, a long time ago, I started my career in consumer packaged goods, which is actually a great place for somebody right out of college to start their career in, because generally speaking, a lot of at least this consumer packaged goods companies you're looking at here on the screen, they're well resourced. They have large training programs and development programs for kind of young associates. So I was really lucky to start my career there. And I started at a company we're all familiar with, PepsiCo. in not a very glamorous role. Zone sales leader sounds pretty glamorous. And yes, I had people reporting to me. Yes, I was responsible for sales in a region, but a lot of that was kind of on the ground work with my sales reps in convenience stores, on the floor, taping POS, doing dropship orders on Gatorade that might be out of stock. And I share that with you just simply because um, oftentimes your first or second job out of college it is not that glamorous. But I will say, as I look back on my career, it's those kind of jobs where you really had to like roll up your sleeves that you learn the most. And I learned a lot about consumers. Learned a lot about sales. I then moved into a more headquarters role at Del Monte Foods, where instead of being a salesperson in front of a customer, I was actually a capability supporting sales, giving them direction on placement and promotion and pricing and all that good stuff. Then I moved over to Georgia Pacific, and Georgia Pacific is the company, the consumer side of the company that sells paper towel and bath tissue. Okay, so paper products. But I will say that this was probably one of those really special inflection points in my career because it's where I had the opportunity to lead an insight team and really start understanding the value of consumer insights and how, if you translate those, can really kind of come up with amazing solutions for both customers and for the firm that you're working for. Right around that time, after a few years with Georgia Pacific, somebody approached me and they thought, hey, you might be really well suited for the textile industry. And I was like, well, I've never worked in the textile industry. And they're like, well, you have some capabilities that are transferable. Maybe you should give it a shot. So in about 2013, this was after about 15 years in consumer packaged goods, I switched to a different industry. And it was challenging, right? Because it's a different value chain, it's a different set of customers and so forth. But I'm glad I did because it's been an amazing experience so far. So I started with Invista, and they were the like proportion of Invista, which is a spandex company. It's an ingredient into the apparel value chain. They were bought by a different holding company, so they're now called the Lycra company. But think of this as one company. I was with them for many, many years, and I led downstream sales for them. I even led some of the innovation development from the business standpoint and launched 2 fibers for them. I then had an opportunity to lead B2B sales for Swarovski. So every time you see a little crystal component, maybe sewn onto a collar or in the face of a watch, that was likely my old sales team working with the designer at that particular brand, selling in those individual crystal components. And then I had an opportunity to move to Gore, and I haven't looked back because it's just been a fantastic opportunity. And I mean, I met Jessica there, so how great is that? So what do I do at Gore? So I've had a couple different commitments, but I'm going to share with you 2 days in the life. One from a commitment or a role that I really just kind of tied up about a month ago. And then I'll show you another example of the role that I moved into because they're actually very different, pretty distinct. So the role that I just kind of completed with them and I wrapped up, the title is Vive Brand Champion, but this is a good example that titles don't really mean a ton. Companies can kind of title you anything they want, but it might mean something differently to others. I tried to kind of think of an equivalent on the outside, and I would say that this was probably more of like a GM type, a general management type role. And it was definitely very execution based. So Vive was a beta test. It was a beta test in our direct to consumer business unit to explore the opportunities within luxury outerwear. So using Gore-Tex ingredients, but creating luxury outerwear jackets and selling them direct to consumers. It was a beta test that started and ended. But when I joined it, we were kind of at the beginning stages. So a typical day for me would actually be this stacked. This is a real day, and it would be very execution based. And what was so great about it is that a lot of the decisions that I would be making that day, I could see the impact of literally the next day or the next week. Typical day might be talking with my consumer insight agency about new insights that were extracted from a focus group that they initiated, or had a week prior, and how we would apply those insights to work that we were focused on. Later on that morning, I might meet with the ecom team and talk about how to apply some of those insights to improve the user experience on our ecom site. I might step away from kind of the Vive commitment for an hour or so and mentor a new hire internally at WL Gore. And Gore believes very strongly in mentoring, or they call it sponsoring. So we're encouraged to spend our time during our day working with other associates to kind of build their skills and support them. I then would switch back and just kind of go back to the Vive work. Typically working with a PR agency on a new brand is something that I did often, because you're trying to build awareness and build the funnel and build the strategies around that. During lunch, I might be eating and parallel pathing some approvals on some social posts on our staging site that I knew were going to go live next week. Interview an external copywriter. So I was always interviewing external consultants to kind of hone the skills on the team and really kind of create ultimately the best experience for the consumer. I might be approving photography around 3 p.m. and then spending some time preparing for any kind of internal meetings at the end of the day. So that's the typical day. It really jumps from topic to topic and feels very execution based. Now, we ended that beta test, and I recently moved into a different role with another direct-to-consumer brand that WL Gore owns called Gorewear. And Gorewear is a cycling and running global running brand that have been around for more than a decade. Pretty big in Europe, not quite as big in North America, but that's shifting very quickly. And my role with Gorewear now has really moved from a very execution-based role to a very strategic role. So the decisions and the work that I'm working on today, I might not see the impact of tomorrow. I probably will see the impact of in 18 months. So my day looks different. It's just as intense, but it's a little bit different. So I might be working on a product development with a product development team on new category opportunities, but we're 18 months out. I might block my calendar to actually do desk research on business development opportunities that I was triggered on, the week focused time to study on this particular day. There are internal meetings with the leadership team where we're looking at our forecasted sales versus actuals coming in and how to close some of those gaps and integrate that into some of the work that I'm doing. There's a lot. Yeah, I have that at 11, kind of something similar at 1 and at 3. And then at 4, again, blocking my calendar for some more internal kind of thinking, writing, business case preparation work. So the day feels a lot different than the prior role, because again, you're kind of working on more strategic work that's going to be executed in the future. So that is what I have prepared. Thank you for your time. Hopefully I didn't go through that too quickly, but I wanted to leave lots of time for the other speakers.
Oh, that was perfect.
Okay.
And I asked Andrea to show both her previous one that she just ended with Vive and Gorewear, because they're so different. And I wanted that opportunity to highlight on both. So thank you for that. Let's shift. Oh, Courtney, do you have a question?
Are we able to ask questions now, or are you going to hold them until everybody presents?
I mean, we can probably, if you want to do a quick one, and then we can wait and then jump into everybody else.
I was just curious. It might not be a quick one, and we can connect offline. But I was curious, from a brand standpoint, how many questions are you getting from the consumer side on PFAS and what Gore is known for, in the market, right? In the consumer facing.
Yes, from consumers, not a lot. Not a lot. I didn't interact a lot. Of course, sometimes you're getting kind of like messages over Instagram or kind of messages through customer service that inquire about that. But I wouldn't say that it was kind of like a volume of calls that I was dealing with on a daily basis. It wasn't there wasn't a heavy consumer outreach in terms of that. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, exactly. I just know that most people think of Gore-Tex, right? Or they think of Gore as having a lamination, right? Or always having a DWR component that has, fluorocarbons in it, right? So so I think I'm just curious to know more about that cycling brand. And if you need cooling yarn technology in it, then I can help you with that.
Oh, that's fabulous. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Maria, if you can pop up the slides again, I'm just going to introduce Rachel quick. We'll just go in order of the slide that we have. All right. Next up, we have Rachel, who is the Senior Manager of Product Testing at Under Armour. In this role, she manages a team of wear test analysts who put product on athletes to provide unbiased product insights evaluating fit, function, and performance. These product insights enable data-driven decisions for continuous product improvement. Rachel has been with Under Armour for over 12 years and started her career in apparel product development and technical design. She leverages her technical background to recommend product improvements and alterations that address athlete feedback. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm going to try and share my screen as well. Let's see if this will work. All right, entire screen it is. Let's see here.
If you're sharing, it's not being shown yet. Okay, there you go.
All right, you can see this now?
Yep, good to go.
Wonderful. Andrea, I just want to say that I really appreciated your presentation, because I think a recurring theme among both of these you're going to see is just understanding what those transferable skills are. If there's any advice I can give anyone on the call, it's don't think that you're pigeonholed into one avenue, one career, because you gain technical skills in one role. I think it is all about understanding what those transferable skills are and using them to find the next thing and the next thing. So that really resonated with me. Thanks. All right, I'm Rachel. As you just heard, again, I'm working currently as a senior manager in product testing, also known as wear testing, also known as field testing. And really, we're just validating product performance by putting product on athletes specific to Under Armour, and getting actionable, keyword being actionable, product insights that help Under Armour make you better. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to start with kind of a brief-ish overview of my career path, which, again, similar to Andrea's, was not very linear. It is, unlike most of the people I know in the industry, all within Under Armour. I've been lucky enough to kind of explore opportunities not in the same career path within one company, which I think is a little bit rare. But I did, as I mentioned, start in apparel product development and technical design. I really loved pattern making in school. And I was lucky enough to kind of learn on the job some of the new technologies within pattern development, which included what you see here in a brief video, just like building 3D patterns, working with avatars, building our own avatars, draping product virtually in order to cut down on physical samples, which saves money, time, resources. I really love that aspect of it, and kind of telling a story with design's vision and saying to a factory partner, this is how you build that, and this is how it's supposed to look on a body versus on a flat sketch. So I went from technical design. I spent the greater half of my time at Under Armour, probably almost close to 9 years in product development and technical design, eventually managing a team in technical design, to accepting an opportunity with field testing. We just really needed someone to come in and build some process and understand how the feedback that was coming in from our athletes directly would impact any changes that we could make to the product. So having someone who spoke the language, thinking about that transferable skill. Just because someone feels irritation at an armhole seam, what does that mean? Like, what are we supposed to do to fix that? Could we change the type of stitching that we were using? Could we change the quality of thread that was being used to make that a more appropriate experience? It's something that's not inhibiting the athlete. So right now, my day-to-day, I manage a team of 4. One of our teammates works out of the UK, so it's a lot of virtual meetings. We have 3 other teammates who work out of our office in Baltimore, so a lot of hands-on experience. I'm also still testing apparel and accessories myself. It's a very hands-on role while still building process and kind of setting the tone for the team. It's a lot of building calendars. It's interesting with product testing. We've got a couple testing departments within Under Armour. There's a footwear team, there's the apparel and accessories team, which I manage, and then there's an innovation team who tests product that's a little bit more upstream, so more of the concepting. My team gets product that we know is going to be made, sold, delivered, and we just kind of test it to make sure there's no main problems that we can solve hopefully before it goes to market, and then also gain insights for things that have already launched if we're trying to reinvent something, hopefully to make it better. What does a wear test analyst do? We, like I mentioned, facilitate on-body testing. That includes building databases and rosters of teams, of athletes, of people who use our product. We like to choose people who don't only shop at Under Armour because we want to avoid bias. So it helps us to have people in our tester database who have exposure to other brands so we can really benchmark our product performance. We validate claims in some cases. If we say something is supposed to be cooling on body while you're working out, we want to make sure that someone wearing it actually feels cool. It's interesting too, we work closely with our in-house lab that does material testing to make sure that the on-body experience in a full garment or full accessory matches what we're seeing in a swatch in a lab. We support product engineering and recommendation to the product team. So like I mentioned, if it's irritating to the consumer, what are we doing about it? What do we suggest you do about it? And then we manage those tester networks. The other fun thing that I think is super fun, is kind of nerdy, but we build surveys and then we analyze data that's collected via those surveys. So it's a lot of data visualization tools and building reports to then recommend product changes to our product teams. This is kind of what one of those looks like. Ideally, we're sending them out via email or via text where someone can kind of answer those questions on their phone while they're wearing the product. And then we use that to make what you see here on the right side, which is just an example of a product report. And that's pretty short and sweet. That's my day-to-day in a nutshell. I'd love to take questions if you've got them.
That is perfect. I love that presentation. Actually, what we'll do quick, if we don't have any other, if we can wait for questions, is I'll jump right into Barbara, have Barbara go, and then we can have questions for everyone at the end, if that works. Perfect.
I just have a quick question. I got to go to a company meeting, but Rachel, email the group and let us know, like within the AATCC, and let us know how we can help you with product testing. So if you
Would
need
love
like
to.
individuals, yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we
Jen.
actually, I'll post the field test portal sign up website in the chat.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, y'all. We'll talk to you later.
Bye. All right, perfect. Maria, if you can throw up my slide one more time, and then I'll introduce Barbara. We'll do Barbara's presentation, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. Thank you. Last but certainly not least is Barbara. Barbara is a senior executive with over 40 years of experience in textile manufacturing. She is a graduate of the Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, now Jefferson University, with a BS in textile design. Her 25-year career with Marcrest Knitting Mills, a circular knit converter, began in the physical testing lab, followed by years of experience as the liaison between development, marketing, and manufacturing, from which she rose to the role of president. Barbara is currently the Director of Product Development for Brookwood Companies Incorporated, an integrated textile company supplying technical textiles worldwide. She is responsible for the development of fabrics, laminates, and technologies designed with functional performance characteristics across all divisions for military, medical, industrial, and consumer markets, both domestic and international.
Hi, everybody. Now let's see if I can share. Let me see. You want to go here?
Minimize.
Okay. There it is. All right. And here we go.
Perfect. We can see it.
I think we have to. Okay, here we are. Now, I have to say to my previous two presenters, it's very interesting. And Andrea having such a diverse background across so many different types of categories of product. Rachel, as she said, it's unusual to have somebody in one industry for a long period of time. I kind of fall in between the two of you. I have been in the textile business my whole life, but I've been in very different parts of the textile business, kind of cutting them up. So, and just like my other two presenters, who thank you very much for setting the tone, I decided that it would be important to talk about how I got here simply, and then how that relates to what I do today, and you'll see the similarities of all of that. So thank you in advance for your time. It all began a very long time ago with a relationship with my dog, Lucky. I was probably 17 years old, and she either ate something or got in a scrap and had to go to the vet. And he asked me, "You going to go to college?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to go to college." And he said, "Well, what are you interested in?" And I said, "I don't want a liberal arts education. I want to be able to do something." And I said, "But I don't know what that means." And he said, "Well, what do you like to do?" And I said, "I like to sew." And he said, "Well, what about textiles?" Well, if he had said fabric, I would have known what he was talking about. But he explained, and he suggested North Carolina State, Philadelphia Textile, Lowell Tech, and I was already looking at Drexel because I lived in South Jersey. So anyway, I owe my textile career to my relationship. Now you can pick either with my dog or the vet, and I don't remember his name. But relationships are very, very important in everything we do. So I went to Philadelphia Textile. Lowell Tech was discontinuing their textile program the next year. That should have told me something, but it didn't. Philadelphia was a great campus. The school wasn't too big. It wasn't too small. And I went in as a textile design major. I was told that my math scores weren't good enough to be an engineer or a chemist. So I said, okay. I would not counsel anyone to do that today. I would say, try to show them that you can be more than they think you can be. But anyway, so I go in as a textile design major, and it's easy and it's fun, and we draw shapes and all of that, and I need some money. So I get a job in the testing lab, and this is doing single end breaks of yarn ad nauseum and working with a man from Phillips and Hewson on a seam project. But I was able to see the technical side of design and get a little better understanding of there was a lot more to textiles than just drawing circles around pebbles. So that gave me an opportunity. And then my first failure, my horrifying failure was brown. We were given an assignment. Everybody got a different color. I got brown. Now, I will tell you today, I have a very good color eye and a very good understanding of color, but don't ask me to mix it. And it was horrifying. I could not match that color. And I must have talked to someone in the lab, and the head of the department, Peggy Gutman, sat down and said to me, "You know, you could probably take courses like print techniques and more technical design problem-solving courses, those kinds of things. Would you be interested in that? And since I knew I would never graduate if I had to match that brown color, I said, sure. It turns out that they did not have a technology curriculum at the time, a textile technology curriculum at the time. But after I left, they did. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one, but I was probably one of a few that they were test driving this curriculum. So my ability to pivot, we all hear about that today, and my curiosity and collaboration, not being an island saying, okay, let's do this together, not only allowed me to graduate, I graduated summa cum laude, and I left with a job in New York for a knit converter, where I stayed for the next 25 years, moving up in the company, as you saw in my bio. Now, all of these categories, relationships, when I went to Marcrest, I was young and I was female. And in those days, you didn't get opportunities, but I did. I worked for, I guess, a progressive guy who also saw the writing on the wall with all of his senior executives, who he was trying to get to develop relationships with the mills. We were a converter. We had to have relationships with our knitting mills, our dyer and finisher. It was critical to the success of the business. And all of these up and coming people, salespeople, they only cared about their sales. They didn't care about the company. So he ran out of people. And about 3 years after I started, he said, I want you to go to the plants. I want you to be in North Carolina 1 week, New York 1 week. And I spent 3 years doing that. And that's what I call my MIT education, the Marcrest Institute of Technology. A day would be going to the knitter, talking about the projects, what we wanted the fabric to do, tying up yarn on a knitting machine, carrying the rolls to the dyer and finisher, working on the plant floor, working with the people who got the job done, developing relationships again because of the opportunity that was given to me and the fact that I was curious enough and collaborative enough to get the job done. Now, Marcrest, over the years, great job, rose in the company as the textile business started to shrink and imports started to get larger. We were a converter. That's all we were. It got more difficult to do business. And of course, you know, here's the failure point, right? The failure point was in 2002 when the quotas were dropped and Chinese imports of both garments and fabric went up 119% in 6 months. The writing was on the wall. It was not going to be a viable business anymore. So we closed the company. Meet failure again, okay? But that failure brought me, and it took a while to get there, but it brought me to Brookwood. And I will say, I remember coming to Brookwood thinking, I have all of this textile experience. I've been in mills my whole life. I know spinning, I know knitting, I know dyeing and finishing. I know it all. My first trip to our finishing plant, I walked 330,000 square feet, 350 employees. I walk in and I recognize 2 pieces of equipment. Barrel jets that they don't run because it's a woven company, and the tenor frame. And I walked out of there saying, wow, I have a lot to learn, and a whole new career started. So that's where I came from, kind of a combination of Rachel and Andrea in that regard. But what does that mean to what I do today? And opportunity. What are my opportunities today in my job as Director of Product Development? There are many, many projects that go on at Brookwood across many different markets and categories of product. At any given time, we have a lot of balls in the air, but every project is an opportunity. Each one of these projects comes in with expectations. They're not necessarily specifications. They start out as expectations. They're either from a customer, they're a marketing initiative, a need that we see in the market that we want to support, and sometimes corporate objectives. But each one of them comes with a different list of needs, wants, and desires. And they have to do with what is the end item, what is it supposed to do, and that could be specifications or requirements, physical testing specifications and requirements. What does it need to cost? It needs to fall into a price point. What is that? And what kind of volume is going to be associated with developing this product? Is that something that we're prepared to support? So that's how the opportunity comes in. Then we have to set our goals. Now it's in our department. It is in product development. And at Brookwood, we have a very small core team devoted strictly to product development. There are 3 of us. We are 3 wildly different people. We have a, I guess our VP of R&D is a mechanical material genius. His mind works. His mind is a machine working. It's not ideas. It's very hard to describe, but an extremely creative individual. We have an associate that handles all of our data management and reporting, which doesn't sound like much, but without that, we are nothing. If we can't prove what we're doing and understand steps we're taking, it's impossible to accomplish anything. And then everybody else that works on these projects is more or less on the project because of their experience or their education, so that they can bring to the table what is necessary. We may only need a chemist for a small change in the level of DWR performance, let's say. We may need an entire team if we're creating an entirely new capability for the company that includes engineering, manufacturing, chemistry, you name it, printing, all kinds of things. So it starts out by we do have to set goals. So a day in the life is, there are meetings. Sometimes you're on site, sometimes it's remote on Teams. There are a lot of phone calls. There's a lot of coordination. And then there is the collaboration and really the negotiation of how do we get started? How do we get started and move forward in a reasonable path to accomplish the goals in the time period necessary? So goals and setting the team requires curiosity and collaboration from everybody. And then results are what it's all about. And there's no way to get results without teamwork. And teamwork is based on relationships and trust. If your team doesn't feel like they can sit at a table and put something on the table and talk about it and work it through, if you have area guarding or, people who they want to be right before they want to collaborate, it's going to slow you down. There are a lot of tools out there for product development management, and they're all good, but without the relationships and trust, it's going to be very hard to get things done. And of course, our best friend, failure. We have more failure in product development than we have success, and you have to be able to accept that in life. Not only accept it, but embrace it. It is it's one thing to make a product and know that it's successful, make it again, make it again, make it again. Okay, we are successful, but you also have to know what will make that product fail. Because if you don't know that going in, you're going to find out the hard way down the road. So not only do we develop to be successful, but we also develop our successes to fail. So we know how to set them up for production and production success. What we like to say, and Jessica's heard this 1,000 times in our brief time working together, if you got it right the first time, something's wrong. Just stop where you are and do not accept it. So the best days in product development of any kind is like herding cats. And it's a lot of fun. There are a lot of balls in the air and things are pinging off each other and you're getting things done. You could be out on the floor watching a trial run. You could be in the lab testing it to see if it is what you expected. It could be the aha moment where the team is together and you know you have a solid product that you're going to take back to marketing or corporate and say, we're ready. There's not a better feeling than that day. And the worst days are like trying to get ants back into an anthill. And sometimes you just have to sit back and say, all right, let them go. The geniuses, let them go. Let them create, let them do what they're doing. And then we'll come back when everybody has gone in the direction they need to go in, and we'll pull it back together again. Not exactly what I do every day, but this is what I do every day. So thank you very much for your time. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel with Rachel and Andrea and Jess. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I should say how I know each of you too, since that's kind of interesting. So Barbara and I worked together almost 10 years. I was at Brookwood prior to coming to Gore. But before I was at Gore, I worked at Darlington, which is one of the bigger suppliers for Under Armour. So very familiar with Under Armour products. But then I also met Rachel through a coworker here at Gore. And then I have Andrea, who I currently work with. So it may seem slightly random, but you have product development on the textile side, shifting over to wear testing when we've already made garments with Rachel, all the way to selling and working with the brand with Andrea. So it's kind of a full story of what you can do within industry. Before I jump into my questions, does anyone in the chat have any questions? I don't know if I saw, let me check the chat. I don't have anything in there. So if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca. First one. Oh, Rebecca, you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Becca. I work at Cotton Incorporated as a research assistant. And I actually have two questions. The first is for Rachel. Do you happen to know Madeline Sudbeck or Sudbeck?
Yes, I do. I'll tell her you said hello.
Okay, great. My second question can go to anybody. What is your advice to a young professional to maybe avoid pigeonholing yourself into like one type of role or even one industry, as Andrea kind of demonstrated? Maybe like practical or maybe mindset shifts that you need to make just to kind of help you move forward in your career?
Who wants to go first?
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
The first thing that came to mind that I found really helpful early in my career, and even now actually, is get involved with as many task forces or additional projects outside of your current role, right? The more people you meet, the more projects and kind of I guess, yeah, scopes of projects that you're learning about is only going to kind of expand your knowledge and your network and your opportunities. That's one. From a mindset point of view, and I did this a lot early in my career. I try not to do this anymore, but I did this a lot early in my career. I opted out. Like I opted myself out of situations that I didn't think I fit in perfectly. Like, oh, they're looking for this type of person with this type of experience, and I only check off 7 of the 10 boxes. So I'm not even going to put my name in the hat. And that was wrong. That was wrong. Like, there's going to be enough people in this world that are going to like say no. You shouldn't be saying no to yourself. So if you feel passionate towards something and you believe that any kind of capabilities you have could bring value to that particular situation or role or task force, go for it. Go for it. Don't opt yourself out.
That's
That's really good.
excellent advice. That's excellent advice, Andrea. And I will use myself as an example. After all of these years, I've never participated in anything like this. Jessica called and I thought, I should do this. I don't know how to do this. I should do this. After all these years, Becca, I just want you to know there's always room to take a chance. And the one thing I've learned in my career is that there's always a safety net out there. You might not even realize it, but you're not going to fail. If you try, you're not going to fail. So don't let that little thing, the I can't, Andrea, that you're talking about, it's the real word is failure. Okay, none of us want to do it. Don't be afraid of failure. You're always going to learn something. You're always going to move forward. And if nothing else, you're going to make new relationships. And those relationships are going to carry you all the way through your life.
I just want to like do a like button to each one of them. Yep. I have a little bit of a tactical thing you can do too. We just went through IDPs here at UA, which is an individual development plan that we ask all of the teammates to do on a yearly basis. It's just thinking about what are your strengths, what are some opportunities you want to develop for yourself, and where do you see yourself in a couple years? There's no wrong answers, but I started building this kind of like vision board. And it's think about all of the things you've done in the past, whether it's roles, whether it's projects. There are some sort of skill that you applied to that thing. You might think it's very technical and it's only suited for this one role, but you'll be surprised, and you'll surprise yourself to find out that communication skills, presentation skills, organization, all of those things can cross many, many lines of job function. And like Andrea said, just because you don't have every single thing on a job application that needs to be required for the role doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. Just going for it and trying the thing that you aren't sure about is a skill in itself. Just like that courage to take on something new is a skill that people really want in many roles. I can tell you, as someone who's hired for several roles, like not being shy to just take on something new and learn on the job is a skill in itself. So write it down. It's helpful to do that. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful to you.
Those were all really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for being our first question asker. Do we have anyone else on the call that wants to raise a hand, ask a question? Feel free to type in the chat. While we're waiting for that, let's do, what drew you to this field? We know Barbara answered that question perfectly with her dog. Andrew and Rachel, anything to add on why you ended up where you are?
Rachel, do you want to kick things off?
I'll go for it. Yeah. This again, it's all about relationships. I was signed up out of college to join the Disney College program in costuming, and a friend of mine, another classmate of mine from college, said, "Hey, I'm working at Under Armour and we have this open position. It starts at the same time as your thing, but do you want to come apply for it?" And I just said yes, because for whatever reason, I followed my gut and decided I wanted something that had more potential for me in my career. And I started in a really entry-level position in something I knew I was passionate about, which was apparel. it just kind of fell into place. Again, you just say yes to opportunities and know that you're taking something out of them that can be applied elsewhere, even if it's not your end goal. But it really worked out for me.
Perfect. Andrea?
Yeah. And for me, when I think back to kind of that big decision to leave an industry that I knew really well and I had connections and I built credibility and I understood, and to kind of start over, what drew me was honestly, this is pretty simple. When I've always been kind of mesmerized by the apparel industry. Like if I think back to 5 years old and my mother buying Vogue magazines every month and going through them, I was mesmerized by just the entire industry. So when somebody suggested I take a look, and I thought, God, could I apply my skills and kind of do something within that industry? It was like a magical moment for me because it married my passion with kind of my skill set. And even though it's not like I was designing for Gucci or I was working at the Lycra company. Still, I was all of a sudden going from kind of dealing with consumer packaged goods with a certain set of customers to customers that I shopped at myself, like the Gap, like Levi's, like Hanes brands. And it was a really, it actually was an easy decision for me because it was kind of a lifelong dream. So.
I can say I'll insert myself into this real quick because as someone who was a criminal justice major, I did not expect to ever go into textiles. And so don't be afraid to go into something that you know nothing about. I got hired at Brookwood because I was a paralegal. And so, it just could happen that all of a sudden now I'm a colorist. So like it can happen where you just end up in a world where you didn't expect to be. So don't be like afraid to take those chances and kind of jump into an industry that maybe you know nothing about, because you can learn.
That's amazing, Jess. That is a big career jump.
Yeah.
I love it.
Details and research. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
And that leads me into my next question. What skills should someone in your field have? Anyone? Any skills that you recommend would be important for your current positions or other positions? Or
I'll start this time. To me, it feels kind of fluffy to say. And I just want to say, don't be afraid of the fluffy things when you're applying and putting things on your resume, but and this sort of level of intellectual curiosity, just being open to learning something new and assuming that the way you think something should be done is not always the right way, and just being open to learning new ways of doing things, of hearing from other people, of all the things. So intellectual curiosity seems kind of vague, but openness and willingness to learn and listen, really, it's important.
Those are great.
I love those. No, I love those. I think that's fantastic. I think the first couple things that came to mind for myself, again, they seem pretty general, but they're so important. One is really refining your communication skills. Because if you don't have the ability to communicate, written or verbally in a succinct, compelling, inspiring way, it's going to be everything's going to be a little bit tougher, right? Selling kind of internal stakeholders, selling external customers, which is very important for me. You could kind of have all of the knowledge out here, but if you don't know how to communicate it in a, like I said, a really compelling way, it's going to be really tough to kind of like navigate and advance your career at maybe the pace that you're looking for. And I would say the other thing is leading people and really refining that skill. If you have an opportunity early in your career to lead a team and really kind of learn how to beautifully kind of manage team and inspire people, and that's a great skill to have, and something that's applicable across any industry.
Very true.
And I characterize that as, we're all saying the same thing, people skills. It's important to know your audience, okay? And your audience can be your boss. Okay. You need to understand how to navigate through the world, and in our what all we do, build your team and build the trust and build the relationships. It all comes back to nobody's an island, and find ways to work together. And no, and the other thing is, the one thing, and we're talking about all of this teamwork, but there are some people who are team players, and there are people who are individual, they work individually better than they work on a team. Know who you are. Don't try to be who you are not. You'll be much more successful, and you'll be successful both ways. Just don't try to be who you're not. But don't be afraid of who you are.
Yeah, and try things to try and help figure out who you are, right? So like if you don't know, if you've never led a team before, try it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. At least you've attempted, and you know yourself better at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So great advice.
You usually don't fail. I mean, you don't fail. That's just that you may go in thinking, like I went in thinking today, oh, well, look at this panel. I am going to fail. And maybe I did, I don't know, but I don't feel like I did. So that's all that matters.
You didn't.
But you don't fail in life. You don't. You know what we used to say was, we're talking about textiles here. And yes, some of them have performance associated with it, but babies aren't going to die. This is going to work out, okay? It's not, we'll figure it out if we all put our heads together. And it's true. We're not failing.
We're over dye black, at the end of the day, we'll just fix it that way. So I know that each of you are probably similar to me, where we love to work, we love the data, we love doing what we do. But how do you maintain a work-life balance, right? I think that's important to some of the younger generations, and I think it should be important to everyone to kind of have that balance. What do you do to kind of separate yourself at the end of the day and enjoy life outside of work?
Well, it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. Okay.
Same.
And I will admit to you that there were years, and I said to myself, and at the time I believed it, it was who I was, but I worked long hours and I worked weekends and I did all of that, and it fueled my fire. Okay. But looking back, I didn't have to do that. Now I'll admit, in the scheme of age and time in the business, back when I was starting, and no offense to any of the men who are listening, it was harder for women. Okay. And we did have to prove ourselves, and we had to run faster and jump higher and be more humble and all of those things to get stuck, to advance. So as my career evolved, and really as I got to Brookwood, I said, I am not doing that anymore. I am going to find a way to turn it off. Now, you never really turn it off if you're in the middle of something, and I'll give you an example now. I can't really give you an example back, but the pandemic, I stopped taking the subway. I live in New York City. I stopped taking the subway. I'm still, now pandemic's over, but the subway, you don't want to take the subway. So I live two miles from work, and I happen to have the luxury of Central Park, and I get to walk through Central Park every morning, and I get to walk home in the summer at night. When it's dark, I walk around Central Park, but it's a wonderful thing. It's exercise. I'm outside. My mind frees up. It's probably an extra 20 minutes of what you would call my commute if I was walking to the subway, waiting for the train and all of that. But it has changed my life. I have this whole cool down thing. I think of people in their cars or on the train, and I think, how lucky am I to have this? It's wonderful. So that's part of what I do.
That's nice, and especially to have that wind down time.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I was going to say set boundaries.
Mhm.
It's so hard to do. Another thing that I learned too far into my career here is just you got to block your lunch so you can eat and not get a meeting scheduled. You have to turn your computer off and not turn it on intentionally if you know something is not an emergency, which it never is if we're making clothes, and that's it. Like, it's important work. And I used to do the same thing, Barbara. I used to work late and I used to stay up and get all my things on my to-do list checked off. And I hit a point where I was unhappy, like a lot of the time. So it's getting outside. I love that you're walking around Central Park. I think
I'm so
using
jealous.
those- yeah, use it to get outside and walk around and separate, and then be serious about setting boundaries and blocking your calendar for things you need to do outside of whether it's managing a team, it's going to other meetings, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of
And-
people still work from home. Is that correct? I don't know. I couldn't do that. That would be really hard for me to do. As a matter of fact, we only were remote for maybe 3 months during the pandemic, and I've been back in the office since July of 2020. So
Wow.
I hated working at home. I hated it. I could never, because I could never turn it off. I would be up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd be on that computer. I would be sitting in that chair, and next thing I know, it's 6 o'clock at night.
Yep.
You have to, you've got to, and especially if you're working from home, you really, the boundaries that you're talking about, Rachel, they have to be set, because otherwise, I don't know if we're built the same way, which is, get it done, get it done, get it done. You've got to break things up.
Mhm. I don't have much to add. What I was going to say is on the work-life balance, I'm just very disciplined with my calendar. So kind of exactly what Rachel was saying. It's not that I have a perfect work-life balance on a daily basis. It ebbs and flows. Some days I have to drive hard, and it's 12 hours at the desk and I'm like getting something done. But the next day, maybe my daughter has an orientation at school, and my son has something with sports day that I need to go watch, and I will block my calendar for 3 hours and I will disappear. And I realize that I'm very blessed to be able to do that because I do work remote, but I block it and I don't feel badly about it. And the work gets done.
No, good point. And like, I find that, same with my lighting in here, it's going terrible. It's thundering outside and getting really dark out. But I agree that just trying to find those boundaries is really important. Not having your work phone by your bed, so when you wake up, checking those emails as soon as you wake up.
Good idea.
I now charge it in the kitchen.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And so I think figuring out what those boundaries are and how they work for you is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to that point, Jessica, that you mentioned, hi again. I was just watching a YouTube this morning with a neuroscientist interviewed. If you guys have heard of him, I was looking up his name. He was saying that there is 83% of the U.S. population. I don't know where you got these numbers, but 83% of the US population, first thing they do is start checking email and Facebook. So it's like you go directly into that. You don't give yourself time to create, and that we're all living in stress, but we don't know we are. So first thing, you're not out of your theta brain waves yet. You got to get into that beta, get transition with the alpha. So just saying, we all need that transition. So yes.
Definitely. Any other questions from our audience members? I haven't seen anyone chat or raise a hand. What about our panel members? Do any of you have any questions for each other or anything else to add? Oh, Catherine, you got your hand.
I just wanted to say thank you to the group, because you are speaking to, I'm an experienced professional. I've been in product development, on the consumer side, as well as business to business. we do detergents and that kind. So that's why I belong to your organization. But the things you are saying are so true, is that you won't really fail. You might have a little oops along the way where, something didn't turn out quite right. But it's that fear of failure that I think is holding back so many young people now, and that not realizing the flexibility of the skills they learn. Like you, Jessica, where you're saying you were a paralegal and look what you do now. But I just wanted to thank everybody for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Catherine, do you do detergencies for textiles? I took a whole detergency class in grad school. Obsessed.
It's such a good skill. I walk down the hall and I see all the people doing the consumer product testing. And I actually developed some soil release polymers and that in my synthetic chemistry days. So it's just a very interesting, and you can apply, can answer people's questions on what they should use if they want to listen.
Yeah, right.
I was going to let y'all know about, are y'all on board? I don't know who's going to be in New York on July 18, but there is the AATCC. It's a social in the city that is being hosted by previous AATCC President Harry. And that is the 5th annual summer social in the city, Tuesday, July 18, in New York, like a little bit of a short walk from the Javits Center. It runs from 5 to 9 p.m.
Yeah, I'm signed up for Functional Fabric Fair, so I don't know. It depends on what mills come if I'm attending or not. But if I do attend, I will hopefully be there. And that actually is a great segue. Maria, if you can drop my last slide, I'll talk about some upcoming events for AATCC.
Will do. And the link is in the chat to register for the social. Thank you for bringing that up, Courtney. Here you go.
Thank you. I'm sorry if you hear my thunder. It's a little rough here in Maryland. All right, so we have a couple in-person events coming up. We have a Navigating a Path Forward for PFAs and Textiles. That's July 11th through the 12th. We have our Textile Discovery Summit, which I will definitely be at in September the 12th to the 14th in Greenville. We do have a textile testing workshop coming up in December. And then we have 2 more virtual events coming up. We have the insect-free bite-proof clothing in August, and save the date for a haptics and textiles in December. So lots of exciting events coming up. We have a few more interest group events coming up as well. But I want to thank Barbara and Rachel and Andrea for attending today and giving great presentations on what it looks like to be in industry today. And each of your perspectives has been super helpful, and I'm hoping that our members get a lot out of this, because I know I did.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jessica. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. And I hope to do more of these because I think it's really interesting to highlight different areas within industry and how they all kind of come together. All right, with that, I'll say let's end a little early, get a few more minutes back into our day. And thank you again.